everyone. I'm excited to film more stories ever since my, 2 week long break? I'm not quite sure how long it was, but good to be back. And I will read to you chapter 6 in a moment. One thing to bear in mind about all these is that they may not seem fantastic at first, but I promise you that they all connect somehow. If you miss one piece, that's it. It's pretty hard to catch up or fill in the gaps. And so now I will read to you this story. It's called The Lake Spirit. The thing about the Lake Spirit is that I didn't really draw many pictures for this one. I'm going to try something new and show you as I read them. I think that the flow of the story will be better. Yeah. Adding my own commentary, even though I usually save it for the end of the video or the story. Anyway. The Lake Spirit. One time I went to bed and dreamed I was in the professor's cottage. I felt perfectly normal sitting at a table just reading and writing. My professor going about his business. I looked up from my book and I looked around. My professor faced me and said, "You like fairies, right?" "Yes," I said. I went back to my book. He said, "How would you like to meet a good friend of mine?" "Sure," I said, getting up. He said, "She is a fairy and I think you would enjoy meeting her." He hurriedly opened the door to the cottage and let me through. We walked across this gigantic lawn and then along a winding road. It was a beautiful road. Then through some trees, the whole time him being very eager and anxious for me to see her, which I thought was very strange of my professor to act that way. We came to a lake, which made me very wary, because water spirits and water fairies are not to be trusted, except under certain circumstances. These were not these circumstances. He motioned for me to come closer to... Oh, wait. Yeah, he motioned for me to come closer to the water, but I wouldn't. Then in the middle of the lake was a spiral that bubbled and gurgled. I meant to say that it was a vortex that bubbled and gurgled, like a water tornado in the lake, but I said spiral, so there. A woman emerged from the center of it and made her way towards me. I was scared, and I wanted to back up. She rose up with a statement like, "Oh, Professor, how good it is to see you, and who is this?" And she stepped closer and tried to take my hand, but I snatched it back. I pleaded with my eyes to my professor as she tried to come in for a hug, so I backed up, leaving her arms empty. My professor just laughed and said, "This is my apprentice." I looked at him shocked. How could he be so uneducated about fairies, and how he had potentially put me in danger? Then I realized something shocking. "You're not my professor?" I shouted at him. It all made sense now. Even though he looked exactly like him, he spoke with no accent. The whole time he talked to me, his accent was missing. I looked behind me and heard someone shouting. Okay, so like my professor, he has an accent. I just couldn't tell what it would change every dream. It would be like Russian accent, German accent, Irish accent, predominantly, I guess. I love Ireland, but but then I heard someone shouting. "Ava," he called out as he ran towards the lake. "Don't trust her." My real professor realized that I was missing and came looking for me. I looked at my fake professor and his face started to melt off. He shrunk to half his size and turned into a scary green goblin with long arms. I ran away from the goblin and lake spirit and towards my real professor. When I came close enough, he grabbed me and looked towards the lake where the woman and her little minions submerged back into the water, probably grumbling. So my professor let go and looked at me in the eye and said, "That's why we don't have anything to do with fairies." I nodded. But he motioned with his hand and said, but I do have someone for you to meet." So I looked out where he had his hand stretched, and I saw my friend. "The hero!" I shouted and ran to meet him. "You're alive!" Because it was the hero from the previous dream. You know that, in chapter 5 where he had to defeat his uncle and we had to go through tunnels and we ended up in a prison and there was that hideous jailer's daughter who helped us out. That same one he was in here. You're alive, I said. Yep, I'm alive, he responded. He got a haircut. He got modern clothes. But he was still recognizable because he was kind of ugly. So I kept my distance. Like, I mean ugly as in... He still had acne. He still didn't wash his hair. I could have sworn that he had brown hair this stream. Even though the previous was yellow, but he just didn't wash. That was gross. Kept my distance. Anyway, I was talking to my professor and to the hero when I woke up. And that's all I have to say about what I wrote in this. That's all from the text of the story. So it's not written down in my journal, but what I ended up speaking to the hero about was, it was like, how did you end up here? And he couldn't really explain it at that time. He said it had something to do with magic, but he didn't mean to end up here, and that the professor was the one who found him. And he, like I said, he looked modern. He was no longer medieval. And I drew a picture which I'm comfortable enough to show with y'all now. It's not the best drawing I have of my characters, but I still think it's pretty good. I drew this when I was like 16, and my drawing skills weren't at its greatest. Like the face, I really don't think I captured the face, and it will change over time. But that's him. You know, I get the feeling that I'm rambling in this story. Maybe I'm just not feeling as confident today. But I do hope that y'all enjoyed looking at that picture and hearing the story. So I'll go ahead and call it a wrap for today. See you next time.